All right. It's been a couple of minutes, so Emma, I'll hand over to you to do a bit of an intro here.
No worries. Thanks, Luke. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma Bosworth. For those that don't know me, I'm the National Program Manager of Green Music Australia. I'm joining from Gubby country today, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all to introduce our very first Green Venue program. The Green Venue program was born out of lots of different pieces of work that Green Music Australia has been doing over the past 10 years, but probably specifically through our Green Action program that we've run for 3 years now, which is a sustainability program for all sorts of music businesses. We actually saw that about 50% of the businesses participating in that program were venues, and venues are a very important piece of our music ecosystem. It's where people tour, it's where people party. And we were also getting a bit of pressure both from artists and record labels for them to understand when they're booking their tour, they were asking us what venue should they be booking, what venues are doing the right thing. And of course, we knew anecdotally through the work we'd been doing with various venues across Australia, but this program looks at solidifying that knowledge and being able to, one, assist venues in doing better environmentally, but also allowing the industry to understand what venues are doing better than others. It's not a competition, but it is a competition. Just kidding. And just for housekeeping, we have three Green Music staff members here. It's myself, Luke, and Bridget. And, we understand that there's probably going to be quite a few questions along the way. We've got a few guest speakers here today. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat, and then Bridget can pipe in with those when it's appropriate, or we can answer them at the end through Q&A. Thank you. Over to you, Luke.
Great. Good to see you all. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. I'll give a little bit of a rundown of what we'll be doing for the next 45 or so minutes. So we'll kick off. We'll just do a bit of an overview of the Green Venue program and the various elements that are involved in it. Following that, we've got three guest speakers that are going to come on we'll hopefully fit all of this in there. But we've got Tino coming in from Sound New South Wales, who's going to tell us a little bit about some of the grant opportunities that are coming up to support some of the work that we've got within the guide. Given that it's Sound New South Wales, these are New South Wales-based grants, but we will be keeping everybody informed about the other states as well. Then we're going to have Anthony come on from ChargeWorks. They've been doing a number of energy audits for us recently. So he's going to talk a little bit about why that's important and what actually takes place during those audits. And then we'll be handing over to Asha from Austep, who has been able to do some capital works upgrades on various buildings and businesses around the country, and some of them being music venues as well. And then we're going to leave about 10 or 15 minutes at the end, as Emma said, for a Q&A. So we'll ask that we don't interrupt during the session, but feel free to pop those questions in the chat, and Bridget will be sorting those and making sure that we get to as many of them, hopefully all of them, throughout. And then we'll wrap up and have everybody out of here by 3 o'clock, which should be great. So just to kick off, just to give a bit of an overview of what the program is before we dive into each element of it, we have currently up on our website the Green Venue Guide, which is a free download with a whole bunch of information on what you can be doing as a venue, or just an understanding of what venues can be doing in general. We're going on tour, which is pretty exciting. Next month, we're going to be hitting 6 venues and doing workshops in there. And then we've also got a certification pilot program, which is available now. So there's been a lot of work, I guess, that's gone into this program as well, I should say. And it's all fascinating stuff. One thing I did want to say at the top is that while this is targeted at venue staff and at venues in general, I think that this program really does cater to everyone that is interested in live music, which I assume many of us are, being on this call. But what I have found since studying a lot of this curriculum and understanding a lot of it is that you find yourself at a show actually looking around and being like, oh yeah, that's why they're doing that. Or I wonder why they're not doing that. And so as a result, it ends up being a really valuable resource, all of this, not only for venue staff, but also for artists, artist managers, booking agents, and just general punters as well. So I just wanted to flag that at the top so that it doesn't feel like it's only catered for one type of one section of the music industry. So the Green Venue Guide, like I said, it's available now. It's actually not 40 pages. I checked, it's 38. So you save 2 pages now. We managed to whittle it down, which is great. But this is a really extensive guide, but it's also a very practical guide. So, there is in normal English that you'll be able to understand and read. There's really it's chock full of ideas about how your environmental performance can improve. And so, in there you're going to find case studies. You're going to find links to a lot of different resources. There's also a dot point summary at the end of each chapter that you can repurpose as a checklist for yourself as well. So what we've really tried to do is just make this as useful as possible for anybody who has an interest in this space. I do think that, often as people and especially, within business, we can sometimes feel really stuck with knowing what levers we can pull to reduce our impact. And something that we're really, that we think is really, really valuable is to have a feeling of constant progress rather than box ticking. Just always be looking for the new opportunities and things that you can do as a business or as a venue or as an artist or even as a person to just keep on moving things in the right direction. And so a guide like this is just an invaluable resource just because of that. So some of the topics that are covered in there, we start off by talking about the importance of acknowledging and connecting to the First Nations country that your venue stands on. And of course, building authentic relationships with local Indigenous folks. There's a huge focus on energy usage. As you can imagine, being a sustainability guide, this stuff's really, really important. And so we talk about ways that you can be more efficient with your energy, which in turn also saves money as well as emissions and usage, understanding and reducing your reliance on fossil fuels, and then other little topics in there like energy providers, how to research for those, carbon offsets and what they mean, because there's a bit of controversy and stuff around those at times as well. So really good stuff on the energy chapter. The waste topic is the other one that's really, really extensive. So it will cover different ways to reduce landfill, understanding the impact of food waste. Now, that's actually a really pertinent one. Just yesterday, New South Wales became the first state to legally mandate that businesses are recycling their food waste properly. So we cover why that's really important as well as how to achieve that. We've got the importance of having reusable cups, cutlery, and crockery, as well as recycling, sorting, and links to all the various different government programs that are there to support those endeavours. Outside of that, throughout, like I said, there's the case studies, there's great links to resources. We cover topics like water and cleaning, transport, food and drink, artist riders, which is a really cool one, merchandise, advertising, there's government grants, KPIs, banking. There's just all kinds of stuff in there. So I really encourage everybody to download that and have a read. And for anybody that wants to go a little bit deeper, that's where the sustainability workshops come in. So we've got 6 of these taking place towards the end of March. So we'll be hitting up in the Northern Rivers area, Brunswick Heads. We've got Newcastle, Gosford, and Wollongong, and then a couple of different ones in Sydney. So the venue guide is going to be the curriculum that we dive into with all of this, but the real beauty of it is there's going to be real life examples. So everything we're talking about, we can point to something within the venue that helps us to understand, the purpose behind things, as well as some of the challenges and that kind of thing, with implementing these things. I think that's something that we at Green Music are really aware of, is that none of this stuff is easy. Some of it is easy actually, but it's not meant to be easy. It's meant to be stuff that you dig into and that you really work with. And so being able to do this in person means that we can actually acknowledge some of those challenges, but also the opportunities that challenges inevitably provide. What else? So yeah, with the workshops, I should say as well. We're going to be having Anthony involved. He's doing energy audits at the moment for each of these venues, and so he'll be able to walk around and also show you where some of the opportunities to save on energy and stuff like that within each venue as well. So it's a really great add-on. We're going to have a few guest speakers, but one of the real great parts of these workshops is going to be that chance for connection as well. So in regards to each topic, we're going to try and open up a little bit of conversation. And I think that's, again, a really valuable thing to have people come in from all different walks of life and all different fields and be able to talk about the challenges, the opportunities that come within this space and just speak with like-minded people that care about doing this work. So yeah, it's free, and hopefully you can all make it along. And if you can't, definitely share it with anybody that you think would get a lot out of this. As much as an educational session, it's also, like I said, a chance to form community and just have a great time together. Oh, and we're providing refreshments as well. So you know, come for the freebies.
Mm.
Uh, the last part I'll talk about is the certification program as well. So this is something that we've been working on for some time, and our hope is within a couple of years, or hopefully sooner, to have a complete network and a rundown of different venues that are doing a lot in this space, so that artists that do want to play venues that match their values can actually have a full regional touring network around Australia that they can go to. So at the moment, it's free for New South Wales venues to be able to complete. It's a questionnaire that takes, we say an hour, but give it 90 minutes. You send that through, and we'll give you it's a chance to get feedback as well on where you stand and how you measure up. Um, Certified venues will get promoted through Green Music, and we'll send it out to our artist network as well as our industry network. And our hope is to send this national soon. I won't put a timeline on that, but we've got lots of ideas in the works, and it's going to happen. So yeah, if you are interested in that, then just reach out. All right. Do we have Tino here? I hadn't actually. There's a lot of people, so
Yes,
Tino's
we
going to
do,
Hi.
jump
Luke.
in.
I
There
am.
we
Hi.
are,
I
mate.
am. No
Awesome.
worries. All
Take it
right,
away,
no
mate.
worries. I think yeah. So, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And I just want to say a big shout out and thank you to Luke and the rest of the Great Music Australia team. I think this is a wonderful initiative, and it's great to see people in our industry trying to be innovative and, be ahead of the curve a little bit. But just top line, I'll just give a bit of a background and explanation of what Sound New South Wales is. So, Sound New South Wales is an industry development office that provides advocacy, leadership, and strategic initiatives for New South Wales businesses. It is a government dedicated contemporary music development office. So we are, supported by the minister, and sort of our focus mainly are artists, venues, as well as anyone who operates in the contemporary music space. So I think particularly for this grant right now, we have two grants which are open that sort of align with Green Music Australia as well as some of our strategies for sustainability. So the first program, and these are all programs which are currently open. So the first program is what we call Venues Upgrade Program One, and basically what that is a grant for venues that are committed to becoming dedicated music venues. So that is a grant which is up to $20,000, and that can be used for assessment reports, DA planning, legal services, and energy efficient audits. And sort of the focus around this is from the feedback that we received around venues is that, a lot of venues are probably at that point now where they need support in a lot of licensing costs. So licensing costs and venue assessments are quite expensive. So, they've asked us to sort of help them provide sort of licensing support so they can get to the next stage in sort of their venue programming, expanding as a venue, increasing their capacity. Um, More specifically for this, one of the programs that we actually recently looked to support energy efficient audits. Something that obviously, Green Music, that we've worked with Green Music Australian, sort of trying to create sort of the framework on what that would look like. And just on top of that, from our experience, we have received a lot of feedback for venues on, wanting to have more energy efficiency audits because it really aligns with, trying to minimize costs. And I think when you're talking to, businesses and commercial businesses, I think a common stereotype and misconception is, a lot of this is quite expensive. A lot of this is tedious. A lot of this, they don't have the capacity to. So, we made sure that with this grant, we give venues an opportunity to sort of, you know, I guess, get this type of assessment so they can move forward with the next step in their planning. So that's program one. And moving over to program two. So program two is our larger program. So that is a grant for dedicated music venues of up to 250,000. And basically that could be used for equipment, soundproofing, ventilation, accessibility, and energy efficiency. And again, this is one of our larger projects, and again, focusing more on dedicated live music venues. But we've had a large focus on this grant, and through the applications that we've been able to receive, as well as personally my experience dealing with a couple of venues, and getting an understanding of some of what their requirements are. This program will have a large focus on the energy efficiency part. Now that can come in many forms, right? For example, one of our venues is looking at completely changing their entire ventilation because basically their air conditioning system is quite old, which meant that they were using a large output of electricity, which had then obviously increased their cost as a venue, and also, the you know their energy usage kept going up every single month and it wasn't sustainable. So obviously they wanted to apply for this grant, obviously to fix up their ventilation. Another venue also applied. They wanted to change all of the lighting fixtures in their venue and go into something that's a bit more sustainable, sort of in the LED space again, because if you look at venues, a large cost for them is obviously that electricity bill. So they'll obviously are trying to find ways to minimize that so they can have a long-term viability. So again, those are sort of the grants that we have open, and it's been very interesting to see, how creative venues have become in terms of some of the capital works that they want to complete, as well as sort of the emphasis on having sustainability works. And I guess this is why I feel like this program is extremely important, because at the end of the day, it's up to you to come up with that creative solution. I think there is sort of support and opportunities. Obviously going through this guide, there was a lot of opportunities that I saw where I guess small things that you could change that can have a long-term impact on your venue and your operation. So, I guess, that's sort of what this grant is for. We're trying to find sort of venues that can start. Obviously, it is a large amount of money. Don't get me wrong, $250,000 is a large amount of money, but the venues that are being creative with that money are being creative with the energy efficiency are the ones that are going to have long-term viability. And again, as someone that looks at these applications, I'm looking at the numbers for these venues. I can tell the larger venues, the more successful ones, the ones that are more, I guess, focused on that, I guess, a lot more financially viable, are doing this for the long term, right? So, if anyone on this call is a part of a venue or would like to, apply for this grant, you can definitely reach out to me. But, we look forward to sort of working with Green Music Australia in the long term, just to see how we can align a lot of our other applications. I guess with a bit more to have a bit more of a sustainability focus. So yeah, I think that's it for me. But again, thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it. And I'll say this again, what Green Music Australia is doing is very innovative, and I think it's got a large space, especially in the music industry moving forward. Yeah,
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Tino.
no worries.
Great. So the program one is for energy audits, which is good timing because now we have Anthony coming over from ChargeWorks as well to talk a little bit about what they do in terms of energy audits as well.
Thanks, Luke. So yeah, I guess just quickly, we're all about reducing emissions, and that's what drives our company and myself personally. And by our specialization is in energy. So we're always looking at ways to reduce emissions, but on a practical sense, we're trying to find cost savings that inherently reduce emissions by using less electricity, or find some spare money for that to be reinvested into further reducing emissions and hopefully costs at the same time. So, excuse me. I thought with my 5 minutes today, I'd just give you a quick kind of snapshot of what we usually look at when we look at a venue and possibly give you some pointers to do some of this yourself, or just get a bit more of an insight as to how it works. So that's my intro. We don't really need to get lost in the weeds here with all these figures, but essentially what I've got is a few snapshots from a previous audit and report that we did for a venue in Sydney. The way we do it is we usually look at how much energy the venue is consuming and how much they're paying for that, because more often than not, it's very easy to find a cheaper electricity contract. The electricity markup is a total, you can't say it nicely. It's a racket, basically. And the retailers are the classic example of imposing lazy taxes. They will put up the rates, maybe not tell you, maybe tell you subtly. And if you don't look at your contracts semi-regularly, once a year or two, then chances are you're going to get stung. So the example here that I'm showing is more on the right-hand side of the screen. What we found for this venue was rates that were literally 50% cheaper in the off-peak period. And again, don't want to get lost in the weeds, but the off-peak period is night times and weekends, which is when venues run. So while this rate's not very important to most businesses and most households, it's critically important to a venue. So by simply suggesting they change electricity suppliers, we were able to save 25% on their electricity bill. It's a medium-sized venue. Their total bill was 16K per year, roughly, and we reduced it to roughly 12K. And by doing that, we were able to suggest that green power is implemented, which is 100% renewable electricity. And even once they've done that and paid a little bit extra for, they're still saving 2.5 or roughly 15% per year. So the outcome there is that they were saving money on their dirty coal-fired powered electricity, saving money and consuming renewable electricity at the same time. And it's a pretty simple, easy win to find. You've just got to go looking for it, is the thing. And as far as green power goes, the green power, in our opinion, is the single best way to know, hand on heart, you're using renewable electricity from the grid. There are many other schemes with carbon credits and the like, but green power is run by the federal government, and it's a market that ensures that if I sign up for green power, that another renewable energy generator is generating the same amount of electricity as I am consuming. And like I said, it's really the best way to know that for sure you're consuming renewable electricity. It does cost a bit extra. So it's about 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you're paying 30 cents per kilowatt hour, it'll cost you 35. But if you can move that 30 cents to 20 cents and still pay the extra 5, then you're still ahead and have renewable electricity. I hope I'm making sense and not getting too nerdy, which I have a tendency to do. But yeah, so like I said, they're the couple of things that we usually look at first. And then once we've got a snapshot of how much electricity is costing and how much is being consumed on a kind of a macro level, then we dig into the detail a little bit. And this is my last slide, but it's essentially a snapshot of electricity consumption across the week. And you can see here there's 3 big spikes because they were typically running events on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturday nights. And so you can see that's the evening off-peak period on the Tuesdays and Fridays, and then off-peak all weekends. And the point I'm trying to make here is that the way they consume electricity, roughly half of the consumption is what they're consuming all day, every day, to have refrigerators on, to have cool rooms running, to have security systems, not that they take up much, but all those little things that the business needs on 24/7, that attributed to about 50% of their entire load. And then the other 50% is their event nights. So that's when the aircon gets turned on, the lighting and PA gets turned on, the refrigeration is running harder because the doors are opening and closing. And it like I said, this is the next step when we do an audit that allows us to get a picture of what we're looking at before we walk into the venue. If we're seeing spikes where there's at times where there's no events on, or we're seeing big lulls when there are events on, then that kind of gives us clues as to what to look for when we're walking in. I'm now starting to tread on Ash's toes, so I think I'll hand over. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, happy to answer at the end.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. I'll pass over to Asher now from Austep.
So yeah, we're Austep based in Brisbane, Redlands in Quandamooka country, and we're a B Corp social enterprise, basically doing the energy efficiency installations and design in commercial buildings. If we want to go to the next slide, please, Luke. So yeah, just in terms of what's possible. So this is Amory Lovins. He's the energy efficiency guru of the world, and he lives in minus 40 degrees snow in winter, but plus 40 degrees in summer. But it has no heating and no cooling, and it stays 23 degrees all year round, and he grows bananas inside there. Like 10 banana crops or something. And then, yeah, and my mum, who's a solar passive architect, has done a similar thing in Armidale, where it's only minus 10, but still doesn't require heating. Go to the next slide, please. So yeah, I guess most buildings are not built like that because we don't think about energy efficiency when there's so many other priorities. So studies show that most commercial buildings, 84% of the energy is energy waste, compared with if you did it all the most energy efficient way. So if you're spending 100 grand on energy, then yeah, 84,000 is waste. This is just sort of a sliding scale of how we think about energy management. So on the bottom end is like just doing one thing at a time, which is still important, but it can be just a band-aid solution. So like just slapping solar on the roof without looking at the building. And the analogy I was talking about with Anthony the other day is like if you have your cup of coffee this morning and there's a hole in the cup and 84% of the coffee was just pouring on your lap, then you don't want to just go and get a cheaper and more green coffee to pour in there. But then by the same token, there's no point going and getting an amazing reusable cup if the cafe is charging you $50 per cup of coffee and it tastes like crap. So you kind of want to look at all of these things, get a better source of energy that's cheaper and plug up the holes in the building. So going up the sliding scale a bit is the energy hierarchy and energy engineering, where you basically first you look at consumption. So if there's back of house fluorescent lights, then maybe you can put a motion sensor to stop them running when no one's around. And then once you've looked at that, then you could look at replacing them with LED. And then you're moving down the sliding scale, then you would want to look at solar. But even that's not the best approach. The best thing is if you can do integrative design, where you look at the whole building and each part helps the other part. So maybe you want to look at solar, but there's some roof leaks you have to repair first. Maybe you want to upgrade the hot water to heat pump, but it's going to have a long payback, and maybe you want to do some aircon upgrades, but it's the same. But if you looked at all of those together, you could do a heat reflective roof coating on the roof, which fixes the roof leaks because it's a waterproof membrane. And then that reduces the cost of the solar because you don't need to do the roof repairs. And then that also reduces the cost of the air conditioner upgrade because now you've got less heat load coming down from the sun in the day. And then you could also set it up so that the heat pump hot water is capturing the solar energy in the day and capturing it as thermal storage. So later on that night, when you've got an event and there's no sun shining, you're taking that free hot water back out. And if you did all those together, every part of that capital project is cheaper and more efficient. So what's on next? And this was just a very quick slide on returns on investment. So people are happy with 5% return on investment for property. So 45% return on investment for integrative design is pretty attractive as a business decision. On the next slide, please, Luke. So yeah, obviously energy efficiency also has these financial impacts. So it's a good business decision, but there's also less tangible ones about HR. So employees are more happy being in a venue that looks cool and is thermally comfortable. Maintenance costs, so equipment that's not being run as hard lasts longer, and then that's less embodied emissions and less landfill. Property values go up in energy efficient buildings, net zero. So I think International Energy Agency says that energy efficiency is the cheapest, fastest way to move towards net zero. Customer experience, so guests having a good time because the building's not freezing or not too hot. There's not old lights making it look run down. And then the legal side, that you don't want people tripping over or getting sick. And yeah, what's on the next slide? So yeah, just some common issues. So a big one's the kind of passive elements of the building, not the equipment, but the thermal shell. So not having a black roof, but having a lighter colored roof, so it's not sucking in the sun, making sure that the doors are closing properly and everything's sealed up and the air conditioning's not escaping, making sure there's insulation. Controls, obviously behavior change is very important, but you can also use controls to aid with that. So people often set the air conditioning way too low or too high, and you can implement some controls to limit the range occupancy. So instead of air conditioners being left on in back of house rooms by mistake overnight, you can have motion sensors that'll switch those off. And think like the economy cycle on the air conditioner, you can set it so when it's cool enough outside, it'll shut off the compressor and open up dampers and start bringing in fresh air. And technology, of course, upgrading old lights to LED, upgrading gas, hot water to heat pump, etc. Just very briefly, some of our clients around Australia, and so out of those music venues there, so Lala's and Oxford Arts Factory and Tivoli Princess Theatre for those music venues, we've done energy monitoring, motion sensors, aircon controls, refrigeration upgrades, some lighting. Next one, please, Luke. Yeah, just very briefly, our model as an energy services company is we do the design and procurement and project management. So it's basically turnkey, all done for you. And our idea is healing sick buildings, generally trying to target buildings with an energy bill around $100,000 or above, so that we can justify all the work that might go into that kind of integrative design. And so, yeah, summing it up, 84% of energy in most commercial buildings goes to waste, and having a non-integrative approach to solving it, where you just kind of pick away at one thing at a time, ends up kind of costing more and you get lower quality solutions, whereas a strong energy partnership and energy management plan helps to reduce the energy waste, which is more profit for your purpose. And then, yeah, on the final slide, so obviously this is a really amazing grant, especially with $250,000 of funding. There is often other little bits and pieces around. The New South Wales state government's always got the energy saving scheme, so it might only cover 10 or 20% of your project, but it still helps. STCs, so with solar and heat pump hot water, there's some federal government money, and again, it's only a percentage of the project, but it helps. And then there's some other ones for bigger sites. There's also a finance option, so where a lot of companies will be happy to pay for your upgrade, and then the energy savings will pay back the equipment. And yeah, that's all from me. Thanks, Luke.
Awesome. Thanks, Asha, for that. So I guess, as a summary, and the reason that it's so great to have these people with so much knowledge come on and talk to us is that what we're trying to do is provide as many options for people to be able to do the work on their venue as possible. So we'll provide some of the sort of practical examples of things. Sound New South Wales has these amazing grants, both for the energy audits and then the energy upgrades. We've got Anthony and ChargeWorks here that we can use for the energy audits, and then Austep, of course, for the upgrades as well. So, what we're hoping is that this is a kind of really holistic look at ways that venues can start to improve. Now, I guess now would be a good time to ask any questions that people may have. So I'm just going to do a quick stop share. I will let you know as well quickly that I'll be sending around all of these slides at the end, as well as any links that you may need to be able to read up on all of this as well. Now,
can I just add something in regards to our green venue program, the certification, like the star rating for the live music venues that we're doing, all of the 6 venues who we are hosting the workshops at will be undergoing that certification framework. And so part of that workshop will also include a bit of a Q&A with the venue to understand how they found that process and what things they found challenging, what things they are great at, and also the findings or the surprises, because we've based a lot of the venue guide on the framework and vice versa. So if you're interested in doing the certification, we've got 10 spots in New South Wales, and 6 of those are already taken with those venues who are hosting the workshops. So if you're thinking about contacting us about that certification, know that there are only 4 more spots available at this point, and that maybe have a look at the guide as a first reference point to see, oh yeah, I think I can answer these questions, or I might have some questions. Just, I guess I implore you to have a look at that venue guide and to ring us if you're thinking about it, because it's not a hugely hard process. And if anything, it will work as a bit of an educational tool for you to understand what things you could be doing in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yep, and we've got a little meeting calendar thing. I explained that terribly. We have a calendar sign up where you can just book in a meeting to have a little bit of a chat about that on that website, the link that Bridget has shared as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any questions from anyone? Feel free to raise your hand or chuck it in the chat. Wow, were we that thorough and informative that you've learned everything that you could possibly need to know about all of this? That's fantastic.
I have a question from a New South Wales venue.
Cool.
Hi, my name's Jess. I'm at ICC Sydney down here at Darling Harbour. We're interested in the pilot, and I'm just wondering, is there information available to us based in New South Wales of what that ongoing cost of that would be to maintain the accreditation?
That's a very good question. Not at this point. So the 10 venues who do the certification, after they've done it, will be sending out a survey and a questionnaire and consulting with them to find out how they found the process and maybe refine it a little bit more. And part of that process will also be asking the venues, what do you think it's worth to you as a venue to do this ongoing? I think in the long term, anyone who's getting certified, we would want them to reapply every year to either hold their star status or improve or what have you. We would definitely be doing it on a sliding scale based on the capacity of the venue, but at this point there's no pricing structure that we've considered in great detail, and we'll be doing that after this first pilot.
And I just have one other, a little bit more complicated question.
Yeah.
We are a privately operated but state-owned venue. Would that preclude us from this pilot? Because I noticed that a lot of the Sound New South Wales grant funding precluded New South Wales state or state and federally owned venues.
Do you mean, would you be able to do the certification given your circumstances? Yeah, absolutely. No,
okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
No worries.
Thanks, Jess.
I'd like to just always keeping the finger on the pulse, Tino, if you have any rumors of any other upcoming funding over the next few years.
Well, there'll definitely be another iteration of the venues on the program one and program two coming towards the end of the year, and that will probably have like most likely have an expanded sort of efficiency section. We don't know specifically what that is now, but it's definitely going to be expanded. In terms of programs, there might be another one specifically coming up, and that would be more so for the 24-hour team. So I know that they're sort of starting to draft up some grants and some information about how they can sort of tackle that space. And that just isn't for, I guess, music venues. That'll be for like hospitality, businesses in general. So that might sort of have more of a capacity in terms of businesses that can apply. But that's it for now. That's it for now. So I think after this, probably look for the next iteration of the venues upgrade program that should probably come out around September-ish. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. And if anybody is signed up to any of our kind of newsletters or to the Green Venue program, we'll make sure that we're informing everybody around these things as they come up as well. We want to try and make sure that information is available to everyone within our ecosystem as well.
Yeah.
I might just have a quick question for both Asher and Anthony. I'm just wondering, is there like a standard cost for your audits, or does it depend on sort of the situation building that you're kind of looking at?
You can really answer that one, Anthony.
Yeah, sure. So it varies basically on the size of the building. So from a couple of $1,000 to maybe double that, depending on essentially the energy consumption usually reflects the size of the building. So both of those things come into account. Are you asking for a specific reason, Kate, or just curious?
Yeah, so we're sort of starting a group at Universal, and that's sort of about environmental, like being environmental and sustainable and that sort of thing. So it's only just sort of kicking off at the moment, but I thought both sort of Austep and also ChargeWorks they were both quite interesting things that I could potentially introduce.
Yeah, cool. I have actually quoted David Adams on this over the last year or two, so you might want to check with him.
Okay, cool.
I think also we did a universal energy audit quote a few years ago for a grant. I think it's a bit difficult to get things up the rank sometimes, maybe. But I guess now that you have a team on it, I guess that's probably what was needed with having a lot of other things going on. So that's good to hear.
Just on that, Kate, DECWA do have grants available, I think up to 25 grand to support with energy efficiency audits for businesses.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jess. Thanks, Asher and Anthony.
A question for the green music team and/or Anthony. Do you have much data about like just the baseline of Australia for music venues? Like what's just any data at all? I'm just always curious.
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of work with venues. So Georgie, who's here, I just delivered her 22-23 report, and most of the venues who participate in our Green Action program, they get post-program monitoring. So we do review their energy and their waste and a few other bits and pieces as well. And yeah, we're starting to build a really good story about, I guess, what challenges venues have and what sort of scale we're looking at, like in terms of the kilowatt usage over a year based on their capacity and their square meterage. So we certainly do have some data, and we're looking at releasing something publicly, probably in the next 6 to 12 months on that. Yeah, I guess it's also worth noting to everyone in the room that, well, we've brought Asher and Anthony into this meeting because we've worked really closely with them, and they've both got lots of experience with working with Green Music Australia in our program. So certainly, I think as a not-for-profit, it's important that we do have a disclaimer that they're not the only businesses out there doing this work, but we've brought them in because we trust their work and really appreciate their input today. So I just wanted to say that I think it's worth noting.
Great. Is there any other questions from anyone? Anthony, there we
I've
go.
got one if no one else does. I guess I don't want to put Tino on the spot, but in other sectors, we've helped clients with feasibility reports and audits and things for a grant. And a lot of the time, the client gets put off because they just feel like they have no chance of winning a grant because so many people are applying for them. But we found that usually, like 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 of the applications are actually being awarded grants, and the threshold isn't as high as it seems. So I guess I was just curious to hear from you, Tino, is there with the Sound New South Wales grants, like what percentage of applicants tend to get funding, and is it more or less than one might think?
I mean, it really depends on what the budget is. I mean, from my experience, I would love to give all of the venues that apply all the money in the world just because obviously I know how difficult the business sector is. Do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, we have a limited budget. And the way that budgets are especially for our system, the way that run is it's a budget for 3 programs. So we have to separate the money based on 3 programs. So again, we are limited by budget. So it really depends on the applicants. For example, you might have certain programs that have 1,000 applicants. You might have certain programs that have 10 applicants. So obviously the ones with less applicants, obviously, it's going to be a lot easier to assess based on what our process is. But for example, if there are, let's just say we do have programs that have over 250 applicants, all of that is going to be the people who are going to be decided are usually the people with the best applications, so like the project plan, what the budget is, what the scope of work is. So, we just have to follow the process, and the most important thing for us in terms of when I'm assessing an application is that everything is fair, right? I can't go in and say, for example, this applicant is this size or this applicant has this amount of resources, and then that applicant is more significant than an applicant that is, for example, a small bar. It's completely different, and we need to keep a fair spread between everyone. So to answer your question, it just really depends on how many applicants have applied, and it depends on what the budget is.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Ant.
Hello, sorry, I couldn't find the put my hand up button. Yeah, just wanted to say how amazing it is that Sound New South Wales has provided these funds, and it's just incredible to see happening in New South Wales, and great that Green Music Australia have grabbed that, and it's just such a powerful program. I may have missed it because I had to jump out, but just any ideas or options for other locations as well, or any things you're already doing, for instance, in Victoria or anywhere else around the country we can jump involved in?
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, so I guess the reason that we are doing this pilot in the state of New South Wales is for a couple of strong reasons. One is that we've done our Green Action program there twice already in 23 and 24. And yeah, over 50% of those businesses participating in that sustainability program were venues. So we did feel a real great need that venues needed support and were hungry for it. And then secondly, of course, as a not-for-profit registered charity, up until recently, we didn't have any core funding. So we were applying for funds to try and get this project off the ground. And thankfully, Sound New South Wales saw a lot of merit in it and supported it. So that is the main 2 reasons why we're focusing on the state of New South Wales at this stage. And it is a pilot. My hope is that it's really successful and people find it a really worthwhile program, that it can potentially, I hate the word commercialise, but perhaps it's something that Green Music Australia can do without the propping of grant funding. Maybe not, but we're always applying for grants in other states and any regions, and asking people for partnerships. Like ALNBC is a perfect partner to run this in other areas. So very happy for ideas and partnership opportunities to come through.
Great.
I guess it's worth noting too, like this is three elements. This program has 3 elements. It's the guide, and the guide is useful for anyone in any region. So a venue in Cairns can easily pick this up, and it's applicable to them as it is to any venue in New South Wales. The workshops are only in New South Wales, but the certification framework, if successful, there's nothing stopping us from rolling that out anywhere. We don't need to necessarily run workshops, even though it does really help the process. But the venue guide is there to prop up that certification. So, you know, who knows? Come July, we might be opening it up to everyone. So fingers crossed.
And we've also had a bunch of help with the certification framework from our friends at the Corner Hotel and the Forum as well that we've worked on with it. So, you know, we're also speaking to venues around the nation to make sure that, like, you know, we're really catering to everyone as much as we can.
Yeah.
And funding wise, you mentioned Victoria, and it seems to be the best in terms of like you can get almost free commercial hot water upgrades from the Victorian government subsidies down there. So there's definitely support in Victoria for venues to upgrade energy efficiently.
Go Victoria.
Before we wrap up, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our guest speakers who have joined us today and our amazing allies like Georgie from the Corner, who gave Luke a couple of hours of the time to run through the framework and give feedback. Thank you, Georgie. And also Tino and everyone at Sound New South Wales who have supported this program, as well as Music Australia and Creative Australia who have recently funded us. Music Australia funded us for core funding. Without that, we'd be a bit lost. So thank you very much to everyone and for all of you to showing up, and for Luke for running this program, who's doing a sterling effort.